We can get started. On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed into law an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act included an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. This meeting will not include in-person attendance by members of the public, but all effort will be made to permit public attendance in the manner specified below via remote access by internet or telephone. Public access will also be provided by posting draft minutes and/or transcript, recording, or record of the meeting on the City of Malden website at cityofmalden.org as soon as practicable after the meeting. Additional information or guidelines can be for the public can be found at the City of Malden website. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. We're going to start with the informational hearing and try to get through that quickly so that we can get to our annual or our monthly meeting, not annual, our March monthly meeting. So let's see, do I need to do roll call before our, I think I do, right? Before our hearing? Let's just do roll call. Cool. So let's see, Ina Babitskaya.
Here.
Khalil Kaba.
Here.
Eric Henry. I know he's here.
Yes, Eric Henry, CPC.
Yay. Where was I? Cameron Lane.
Present.
Monique Ching is not going to be joining us. She sent me a note earlier. Rachel Running.
I'm here.
And Brendan Barrett. Doesn't look like he's here. Is he here, Daniel, in the audience somewhere?
Not yet. I heard from him via email, so he should be arriving shortly. But he's not here yet.
I don't see him.
But I think we can start the information.
Yeah, we can get started with the hearing. Do you want to pop the slides onto your screen, Daniel? That would be awesome. Thank you. So we'll start with the informational hearing, which is required by our ordinance at least once. We try to do 2 of them a year, just to gather information from the public and to also let people know about the CPC and how we work and everything. It doesn't look like we have a whole lot of members in the audience, but people may look at the recording and gather information from this presentation there. Again, we're required by ordinance to do it at least once a year. So welcome to the March 16th, 2022 informational public hearing. And we have an agenda to introduce our committee and then I'll talk a little bit about the Preservation Act, the Community Preservation Act. Then we'll take questions if anybody joins us late and has questions, and then we'll adjourn and start our March monthly meeting. So this is how anybody who's interested in viewing this live can raise their hand and ask a question at the end of the presentation. Daniel put this slide in of his lovely profile. And at the bottom, raise your hand is, the button is at the bottom of or you can ask a question in the Q&As. All righty. So our CPC currently is made up of 8 people instead of the 9 because we are waiting for a housing commission seat. But per ordinance, our CPC is comprised of 4 statutory members from relevant city boards and commissions and 5 community members. So myself, as the chair, I am a member of Ward 1 or a resident of Ward 1. Khalil Kaba, who's the vice chair from the is representing the Conservation Commission, and he is from Ward 4. Ina Babitskaya is from the Historical Commission representative, and she is from Ward 3. Monique Ching is one of the resident representing the at-large from the residents, and she is from Ward 5. Cameron Lane is also representing the at-large residents, and he is from Ward 7. Rachel Running, also a resident representative, and she is from Ward 8. Eric Henry is a planning board representative from Ward 3, and Brendan Brett joins us as a resident representative from Ward 6. So the Housing Commission, we're still waiting for that member to be appointed. And we try to spread the members out through all of the different wards so that each ward in the city is represented. And so what is the CPA versus the CPC? The Community Preservation Act is a state law that enables any city who adopts it to create a Community Preservation Act fund. And this fund is separate from the city budget and solely dedicated to improving and preserving 4 areas of life for the city residents: affordable housing, open space, recreational land, and historic resources. So Malden CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, was created when the residents voted to adopt the CPA in 2015. The CPC is responsible for managing the CPA fund. And the CPA fund has 3 sources. We get a 1%, in Malden, we get a 1% surcharge. It could go up to 3% in some cities. And the surcharge is on property tax. The annual state matches we get from the Community Preservation Trust Fund, and that varies per year. And then the city has the option to match, but our Malden has decided not to do the municipal match. So that is not required, and Malden opted out of that option. So this is kind of a quick history of our CPA fund history. We've been collecting the surcharge since 2017 because it took us a couple of years to get the committee approved through City Council. So as of 2017, we started charging the surcharge or collecting the surcharge. And that year, because we were newly formed, we didn't get a state match. But as of 2018, we had 2 years of surcharge collected, and we started receiving the state match. And you can see in 2018, it was 16%. And as the years have gone by, the state match has slowly increased, even though more people were joining the CPA adoption process. So there were more cities joining and getting involved with the Community Preservation Act. Which would normally take the match down because more cities were in, but the coalition has been really good at lobbying for the state to add to the coffers. And as of 2022, we received a 44% match. So that's quite a bit of chunk of money for Malden to put towards these 4 categories. So we've really been able to do some great things. Can you just go back real quick, Daniel? I want to, the graphic below kind of shows in more visual how much money we are now getting as a state match compared to what the surcharge is. And then next slide, please. So what does Malden CPC do? We are basically in charge of managing the CPA fund distribution for Malden. And the committee we formed a community preservation plan to help guide us, and we update it annually. We take a look at this plan and review it. It's lengthy, but it has some really good information on it. And I know I personally refer to it quite often when we have project applications come through, just to make sure that we're staying aligned with our goals and the city's goals. And we developed this plan based on outreach to different boards and commissions. We've reached out to the residents and held hearings like this over the past few years to gather input from the residents to see how they want the money spent. And we tried to align with the city's needs and priorities through their master plans and the various plans that they come up with for the city throughout, over the years. We also need to ensure that the state law criteria is met for every project. And that's why we have the application review process. So we have a bit of an application that needs to be completed before we have a pre-application that narrows down whether your project is acceptable and meets the criteria. And then you can move forward to the application process, and we take the application, which we'll go through a little later in this presentation, and make sure that it is aligned with the city's goals and priorities. And then if we find that the project is eligible, we recommend the projects to the city council and the mayor, and then they are the final approval or rejection, or they could possibly reduce the funding for the project. So far, that has not happened. And then we also are here to educate and assist the community with their submissions and applications of projects. So I can't stress this enough. If you have an idea for a project and you're not sure, or you want to, want more help fleshing it out, please reach out to us. We have Daniel Koff, who is an excellent resource for us and our coordinator, and he is super knowledgeable and can help with any questions that the public has about possible projects, or if they even just have an inkling of an idea, come to us and we can maybe try to help you figure out how to get it done. And then the next slide is so the allowable uses for CPA funds within the categories. So the 4 categories are affordable housing, historic preservation, open space, and outdoor recreation, which we kind of combine into one category most of the time. But this is a very helpful chart for trying to figure out if your project might be eligible. And it's also included in our plan. But for affordable housing, I guess the only one that has more restrictions is historic preservation, because you can't acquire, well, you can't create and you can't use CPA funds for supporting of historic preservation, which would be like staff salaries and that sort of thing. So historic preservation has a few more restrictions because you can't create a historic object or building. But the support thing, we cannot use CPA funds for salaries or maintenance type of funding. So that is a little bit applies to historic, open space, and outdoor recreation. But we can use, in certain situations, affordable housing will allow money for support. Next slide, please. So the Malden CPA category distribution and a little snapshot of the history of where the money has gone from the CPA fund in Malden shows that we have a plethora of open space and recreation projects that have come through over the years. Only a few housing projects, but some very worthy ones, and a few historic, which actually are very close in the amounts of spending between community housing and historic preservation. So we'd love to try to get more projects in those 2 areas. That's one of our goals for the coming year, is to reach out and try to find different entities that have projects in those category areas, so that we can try to spread the funds around a little bit more evenly. And this is our planned 2023 fiscal year budget, which starts in June. But we have done estimates based on guidance from the coalition. We have created estimates for the upcoming year, and this is taking a projection of the surcharge from our finance department at the city and adding which we think is a conservative 2.5, Daniel? 2.5% for the upcoming year. And then with and I don't think we've added in the state match. would be, is that included in here? Okay, we included the state match at 20%, which the coalition also thought was a conservative match amount. So yeah, with those two additions from this past year, these are the numbers that we've come up with, which brings us to a grand total available for fiscal year 23, as you can see, of like almost $2 million for spending in 2003. And then we also agreed to do a 10% distribution, which is the minimum allowable to each category. And that would allow us to leave most of the money into the general reserve fund, which could be distributed to any of the three categories. So you'll notice in the open space and recreation, total available for 2023 is a little bit less than the 113 that we have allocated, because our open space number, we depleted the open space for this year. So we ended up actually taking out of the general reserve for 2022 to fulfill the, or we may be taking out of the general reserves to fulfill the commitments that we've made for 2022. So our open space for 2023 is a little bit less, but that doesn't mean that that's all we have for open space, because we can always pull from the general reserve, which is very well funded. And then the historic preservation and community housing have rolled over the funds from the previous years. So that is a little bit more than the 10% that we have allocated for this year. And the next slide. So what information are we looking for on an application? So if you have a potential project, first of all, we have to make sure it's an allowable use. So you refer to the chart that we showed in the previous two slides ago about, and make sure that it fits into at least one category, but we're also looking for it to fit into more than one category. So, one category makes you eligible, 2 categories or 3 categories makes you a very attractive project. We are also looking for a full, completed, concise application. So we want every question answered on the application. That's very important, because we ask a lot of questions, but they're all very important questions to guide our decisions. So we may request additional support, but we need to make sure that your application is complete. We are also looking for a project to align with our goals and priorities in the that are listed in the plan that we created. And we're also looking for the goals and priorities of the city. So it's good to be familiar with the city's planning documents as well, although it's not necessary. But these are the documents that we are looking to guide our plan. We're also looking for leverage of other funding sources. The CPC doesn't want to be the only funding source. We have been the only funding source, but that's not going to make your application attractive as other applications who are good fundraisers. We also would like you to have evidence of support from residents, other city departments, boards, commissions, the city and state, federal officials. The more people you can have backing your project makes it more attractive for us and more likely that it will get approved. And we're also looking for a benefit to the community, and the more benefits that you can list that your project has for the community, the better. So, and this is not the only things that we're looking for, but these are some of the top things that we're looking for in a project. So what are some of the priorities that CPC is looking for with a project? We're looking for sustainable practices in design. We're looking for projects that protect and preserve existing natural resources. We want projects that will address longstanding or urgent needs in the community and clean up contaminated land. We want projects that revitalize and reuse existing buildings and structures, and that serve as a catalyst for transformative change. We love projects that use renewable energy, that expand permeable surfaces, that increase trees and vegetation in the city. And we're also very sensitive to things that take advantage of time-sensitive opportunities or grants, and that promote cooperation with other groups within the city or neighboring municipalities. So it's all about trying to build connections and preserve what's already here or that's in danger of being lost. So the application process, it is lengthy, but we're tightening it up. I think we're able to move from a 1.5 year long process to a year process with the addition of a great coordinator. So we have a timeline that's listed in the plan, but our pre-application is now mandatory for all applicants so that we can decide and let you know, so you don't spend a lot of time and energy on your application if your application is eligible or not. So the pre-application is mandatory and is due by the second Tuesday in June. So this year, I believe it's June 14th. We will send a letter of approval to the applicant after we review the pre-application and let you know if you're accepted or not, and then you can move on to the full application process. And the full application is due in the fall. I think it will be the second Tuesday in September, actually, because we've changed our meetings now, so it would be the second Tuesday. And the CPC reviews all submitted applications over the next couple of months, and then we may invite the applicant. Actually, I know we will invite the applicant to a meeting to answer questions and add any information that the members may need to make their decision. And then we make sure that the application and project meet all of the requirements of the CPA law, and that it aligns with the city's goals and priorities. If the application passes review, we vote to recommend it to City Council for funding. We could also vote to reject it or to re-invite. And then once the project is approved by City Council, you get an award letter and a grant agreement, and your project is off and running. So what does the CPC not do? So we can't initiate projects. So we are always looking for residents to bring projects to us and to work with city departments so that we can get these great things that you need in your neighborhood done and in our city done. CPC cannot initiate projects, so we need community participation to get things to happen. We do not hold community meetings outside of a public hearing prior to the recommendation to see if there is support or there is not support for a project. So it's up to the applicant to gather support for their project submission before that hearing, because all projects will get a public hearing. And we do not act as contractors. So it's up to the applicant to keep the project moving and to find the vendors and to make sure that it stays on track and it adheres to the terms of the grant agreement. And for more information, you can visit our CPC page at City of Malden. We have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter, we have email, and we hold meetings that are open to the public every third Wednesday via Zoom, or hopefully we'll be able to start live meetings at the Senior Center. Or it might be actually the City Hall when we start doing it. I think they have a room for us now, so that would be great. And we have a survey on the Facebook page that will be up, I think, till the end of this week, Daniel, or yeah, we can leave it up till the end of this week. And that is the end of our information, our required informational hearing. So is there anybody in the audience that has any questions? Daniel, can you see? Anybody's raised their hand? It doesn't look like it on my end, but I don't know if you have a different view.
Do not see any questions.
Okay.
I saw Brendan was an attendee, so he's
Hi,
now been
Brendan.
promoted.
All right. Okay. So we'll close the public hearing then, and we will open our monthly meeting, and we'll try to get through this as fast as possible. So we have approval of the February minutes. Was everybody, I know they came in a little bit late today. Does anybody need more time to review them, or does somebody want to make a motion? Go ahead, Ina.
I have, so there are, I just don't remember, maybe at the second page. So there is my, surname, but it's written with mistakes, with, errors. So I would like to correct this.
Okay.
So,
So is it something that you want to talk with Daniel after the meeting, and we should move them to be approved at next meeting?
yeah, or you can do it now. It's like, I think it's point 4 or paragraph 4, start secure program. And there are, my comments, and my last name is, there are a few mentions, it's all with mistake.
Got it. Okay, so your name needs to be corrected, and then what are the other changes?
I don't see any, so maybe somebody else has.
Does anybody else have any notes?
So number 4 and number 7. So whatever way you see me.
I see. Sorry about that, Ina.
So it should be T and then S. So TS without an additional S.
Babitskaya, not Babist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can make that change. Across the board, yeah.
Did everybody else have time to review before the meeting? Yeah, okay. All right, let me know if, did you have anything else that needed changed?
No.
I just made those changes in the document, so it should now be refreshed on your page.
It's
Love that, real-time changes.
So it's paragraph 4 and paragraph 7. So.
All right. With the changes to Ina's name, does anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes from February? Yeah, Cameron? Oh, you can't hear, or we can't hear.
I'll make the motion to take the meetings from February and make a motion for that.
To
To
approve
accept them.
the February, okay. Does anybody want a second Cameron's motion to approve the February minutes?
I'll second.
Okay, Brendan second. All in favor, raise your hand. Oh, Eric, we can't see you, or verbally. You could, okay, great. We, February minutes are approved. What do they call it? Oh my God, I'm having a total. By everybody.
Unanimously?
Unanimously. Thank you. I've had a rough week so far. All right, moving on to the deliberation of the Spot Pond Brook Phase 2 application. So just to recap quickly, we heard the presentation last week on this application. It's Phase 2 of the continuation of Phase 1, which we approved probably a year ago, I think. And they're looking for $25,000 from the CPA to match a $100,000 grant that would help them complete the engineering plan for a bike path that would connect Coitmore Lee area to the Northern Strand Trail, and to understand the topography and what is possible on a potential trail along that route. And if this engineering work gets approved, this plan, the money for this plan gets approved, Malden could possibly receive I guess it's a transit improvement plan, TIP grant, which would bring in more federal funding for greenway initiatives, which this would be a greenway that would continue, hopefully eventually, from Spot Pond to the Northern Strand Trail, which would be pretty huge. So the phase that was previously approved, Phase 1, had some funds left over, which I think Daniel was at 16,338. Was that the amount that we had left over? Okay. So the phase one had 16,338 left over, which we could roll into this request of $25,000, which would only be like a total of 9,000 and change three. I can't do the math right now. It would be $9,000, 9,000 something that we would actually be granting them in addition to what's left over from phase one. So does anybody need more information or want to discuss any points or have anything they'd like to say about this project? There was a memo that came in that actually, okay, so I forgot to mention this. There was a memo that was received in the meeting packet tonight that did, because this is a little tricky one, because it involves work on roads, which CPA money cannot be applied towards. So the memo that they included in their information, the follow-up memo, stated that the total amount of work being done not on the roads was 29% of the job. And they're only asking us for 25% of the funding. So we're within the bounds of what CPA money could be applied to with the amount of open space that they have in the project, in the total project. So this is also for design work. So it is within the eligible requirements of CPA and what it would be applied for. So it's kind of a combo job, which we've been seeing a lot of, in that there are eligible and non-eligible facets to this project. But it looks like the amount of eligible pieces to this project are within the amount that they're requesting. So it's a doable thing. It is something that the CPA funds could be used for. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions on the project?
And
No,
I'll
we
just-
did. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry. We'll always yield to you.
Oh, I'm just clarifying that we do have a champion for this project, Councillor O'Malley, in attendance. So thank you, Councillor O'Malley.
Okay,
So if any of the committee members have any questions about this project, they can ask him
You
as
could
well.
answer
All right,
questions.
and I
Great.
yield the floor to you, Eric.
Thank you.
Yes, I was just about to comment. It seems like we seem to be a smart use of resources to utilize source funds that were already approved and just to bolster those funds. So I can support that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Rachel.
Is there any drawback to doing the rollover? That's money, the money comes back to us, right? So it's just a
Correct.
kind of a behind the scenes
A bookkeeping thing.
bookkeeping
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, okay, great.
yeah.
I think it sounds like a great idea, and I'm excited about the project and the match.
Yeah, bookkeeping wise, technically those funds, that project has already closed out. So that 16 grand has already been rolled back over into the general fund for CPC. So this is a request for a full allocation of $25,000.
The request is for 25, but they didn't use the other portion, so it came back to us.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion if there's no other questions or comments?
Does the counselor have anything he'd like to add?
Good question.
I can promote him. I can allow him to talk. I will do that now. Councillor O'Malley, you are permitted to talk.
Hey, everyone. I just appreciate the support on this, and I have nothing to add unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anybody?
I'd make a
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go
unless
ahead,
there are
Rachel.
Questions. I was gonna just make a motion that we approve this Spot Pond Phase 2 application.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, on Rachel's motion and Khalil's second. Eric, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cameron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Khalil, how do you vote? I forgot I have to ask the motion and the second.
Yes.
Rachel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ina, how do you vote?
Yes,
And Brendan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. And the Spot Pond is going to receive the funding. Phase 2.
And just clarify, that funding will come from the general reserve.
Yes, because we don't have any more open space money.
There you go.
Thank you for that clarification. So moving on to our next item is so the library projects. The library has 2 applications with us, and it's funny because the phase 2 got started before phase 1. So little recap on this is that there was approximately $50,000 left over from the phase 2 project that was approved. And I don't remember what the total was that we approved for that. Daniel, do you have that off the top of your head? That phase-
100, it was around 125,000
Okay,
was approved for shelving, and the bids came back and were accepted by the city for a very low price of 75,000. So that
So-
project is $50,000 under budget.
under budget. So we have that was returned, correct? That was returned, or has that been closed out yet?
No, that we have not received an invoice for it. So on a paper, we are just encumbering that full $125,000 still to the library.
Okay. So I guess they're in bidding right now for phase 1, finally, which we approved 2 years ago or so. And their concern is because phase 1 is construction, that construction costs are much higher now than they were 2 years ago, that their bids are going to come in higher than they thought. So what we're kind of looking for tonight is to gauge how the committee feels about us being able to apply, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, on any my understanding of this. If we can apply the $50,000 that was not used to any overage that may occur in the phase 1 bidding process. So I don't know, like this has never happened before. It's kind of an unusual circumstance. It would help facilitate them to move quickly on the project once they get the bids in, instead of, if for some reason, we don't even know if they're going to be over on their bids, but there's a high likely chance that they will be over because of the gap of time between the original approval and the actual bidding taking place. So I guess we, as a committee, have 2 choices to think about. We could have them come back and reapply, since it's been 2 years, and if they do need more money, they can come back to us. Or we can agree as a committee to approve letting them use the $50,000 that they didn't use in the first phase towards any overages that might happen in the bidding process for phase 1. Anybody want to?
And yeah, I'll just add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the city has put out the bid right now, and so that is open for contractors to bid on this project, to construct, to do construction on their basement space to make it better for documents.
They had
storage.
water issues, so they were tightening water, making it waterproof basically, and cleaning up the basement was the original project scope.
Yeah, they're making it climate controlled. That was the word I'm looking for. So,
Yes.
So once the city receives those bids from the contractors, the city then will have 45 days to accept those bids. And if it goes beyond 45 days, those bids will no longer be valid, and the contractor can potentially raise the price. So that's why we're coming to you now, before the bids have come back, even though we don't know how much they will be for, because we're concerned about timing, because we're going to try to follow best practices. If the project is over the phase 1 budget, then we would like to have the CPC's approval to apply the excess funds from phase 1 to this project. And then we'd like to go through city council to have city council approve those funds. And it takes at least 3 meetings, 21 days for city council to approve funds, because they have to vote to send it to the finance committee and then vote
Right.
to send it back to the full council for approval. So that would take at least 21 days out of the 45 days that we have to approve these funds. And so that's why we're coming to you at this point when we don't have the full information about whether this is
The
even
bids.
when we don't have the full bids and whether this will actually be required. I'm open to any questions. It's a weird process.
I mean, the thing that concerns me is that we approved this application some years ago. So that kind of, I can appreciate them wanting to have a turnaround quickly once they get the bids in, but we also don't know right now if it would be over. But we do have the leftover money, so I guess that's the decision we have to make. Like, do we want to say, okay, you can spend it without us having the review process in place, or do we want to keep the review process in place and consider this, once they know what the actual costs are going to be? Go ahead, Inez, your hand raised.
Yeah, I actually would like to say that when we speak about 2 years, we need to keep in mind this COVID situation. So it's totally, disturb all the normal, processes we had. And the second one, this project is one of the most important when we speak about historical preservation, and it will serve the whole Malden community. So, our library is a national register. It's a real it's a real historical building, and all of us should be interested in preserving the building itself and its archives also. And climate control is a very important, thing for, preserving this climate control, because archives, I hope, or I think that many of you were in archival part of the library. So old newspapers, old books, all other stuff, they require a real, serious control, because they are fragile. And there are also a lot of artifacts. So it's a really important project for the whole community and maybe beyond, because I know that many people, not only from the state, but from other states, came to our library to work in archives, especially before the COVID, definitely. So we need to take this into account.
Good point. Very good point. Thank you. Go ahead, Brendan.
Is there any, I was looking in the meeting packet, is there any like description of exactly what the funds are for? I mean, I heard what you said. I think I understand. It's just like we're taking the money that was awarded for something else for the library 2 years ago, and it's under budget, so that we're going to be, they were asking to use it for these it is just in case the contractors' bids go over budget, right? Is that what-
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything in writing though? Like, is there something I could read? Just because it just seems, I get it. I think it sounds, it's the library and it's climate control. I think it's all good stuff. I just, is there any kind of supplementary application or something on paper?
No, that's a good question.
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry,
Jimmy.
I didn't share those with you. I can go in right now and add those to the meeting packets. I can add the application from FY20 and or the bid docs that the city has solicited. The scope is the same from the application till now. It's just the
Do
construction.
they have the bid docs already in, Daniel, for this latest round?
No, the bid docs
From
that
the old one?
that the city has put out that,
Oh, the request for proposals.
yeah, and
RFPs.
it's like a 100-page document that
Right.
describes the scope of work. It's
Because they
very-
just posted the RFP recently, so they're not going to be getting bids in for another 2 weeks, I think is what the length of time was for the RFP. So they won't have bids in probably until at least another week, because I can't remember when I saw it posted, but it will be at least another week, possibly 2 weeks before they get the bids in, and they'll know like where the bids are falling. To know whether they'll be in overage situation or not. So that was Daniel's point as to, if we wait and review this, once they get the bids in, they'll have 45 days. We have to wait till our next meeting, or we could call a special meeting to review. And then it would be another 3 weeks for it to go through city council for approval. So, I mean, I don't think that our process is our process, and we shouldn't let someone's project necessarily make us feel like we need to change the rules, but we can also consider exceptions to the rules under certain situations if we think that it would behoove the project. So it's a lot to consider, and we haven't had to deal with this type of situation, but I'm sure it will come up in the future. And I think that we should consider carefully precedent setting and, and how we move forward with this. So I agree with you, Brendan, that I would like more information before we said, yeah, have the money, because it has been 2 years. But I also agree with Ina in that it is an important project and I don't want them to waste time. But we do have that option of calling a special meeting once they get the bids in. If they decide that there is more money necessary, we could call a special meeting to approve if we wanted to go that direction. So
If you
Go ahead.
refresh your browser, you should see the bid docs and the original applications from FY19, not FY20.
right, yeah, because there is no I think Brendan was looking for updated information along with the scope of work. Is that correct, Brendan?
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Just as some kind of documentation or some sort of like laying out what specifically it's asking for. If I was going to approve it, I would just want to make sure it's in writing what exactly we are approving, and so that they are beholden to that. So we're not. I mean, I know it's a library and it's a kind of an emergency case, but I don't want it to be a blank check almost where, oh, well, I
Right.
thought, where they thought, oh, we thought we could use that 50 for whatever, or,
I agree. Ina, go ahead.
I have a question. So you told about amount of money that left from the second phase. So this amount of money can be equal to what they plan to spend over for the first phase or not? Is it larger, smaller, or equal, totally equal?
Well, the first project, I think, was 150. Is that what you said, Daniel? Was
Yeah, phase one was
150,000.
around 150, phase two was around 100.
But that was also for shelving, Ina. So it was a totally different project. This is a construction project. That was a shelving project. So it was the shelving that actually was going into the new space that they have ordered before they actually had done the work on the space. So the shelving came in under, but this is a construction project, and that's the reason they think that because it was bid 2 years ago, that the costs will have gone up.
Yeah. But, again, I think that I understand what you said, about rules, and definitely we need to follow them. But in our practice, there were a few situations when we, made exemptions. And as I told, it's very important because for library, probably all of you know, maybe not of you all know, but there were a few emergency situations because of the condition of the building, when there was huge risk to the books, to the archives, so there were leakage, water leakage, so very serious. And we need to think about that. This is our heritage, our treasure for the whole city, and we need to preserve it for now and for future. So it's not just a simple matter, because when we speak, for example, about open space, it can be done this year or maybe next year to plant more trees or whatever. But in this case, we risk the whole historical building, and it's very important.
I don't think this wouldn't be like we have already approved the money for the project. This 50,000 would be in case they go over that money, just so we're all clear. This wouldn't be whether we approve the project or not, and they wouldn't have to reapply for the money. They've already been approved for the original amount that we approved for the construction. They're asking if we could let them use the 50,000 that was left over towards any overages, if the overages happen on the construction bidding.
I think so. For example, just a few minutes before we spoke about another project, and there were leftover from the first phase to the second. So
Right.
I don't see why we cannot, use vice versa, just to put to call this, emergency fund for this project. So it's the same project, it's the same building. So why and if they do not need this, definitely it can be, decided further what to do with this money. So.
Okay, well, the difference between the two is that the other project was a brand new project, so they didn't have any money yet. They were asking for that money to start the project and had that money left over. This is a project that has already been awarded money, that had another project that had leftover money, and this would be money applied to an overage if they happen to need an overage. So they hadn't even gotten the bids in yet to know if they were going to have an overage. I don't know if that makes a difference, but that's the difference between the two. One of them had money already approved. The other one didn't have money approved yet. It was a brand new project.
And a little bit of history about this request is that speaks to whether this is precedent setting. The city accountant actually just asked me over email, said, hey, we're sending out the bids for phase one right now, and just want to let you know we're concerned that it may be over, and we noticed that there's a funding left over in phase two, so can we just roll that over into phase one if it's over? And I said, I don't know, I think we should check up on that. So I spoke to the chair, Lisa here, and also to the city solicitor, and the solicitor said it's a bit of a gray area, that it may be an administrative matter, but he thought it would be best practice if we come to the committee to get approval and then have it go through city council. So this deliberation is meant to not set a precedent that money left over from one phase can go to another.
Well, though, I have to
without
disagree with you though,
deliberation.
Daniel. I have to disagree with you on that. I think we need to figure out what the process should be for something like this, because we don't have a process right now. So I think that I think that we need to decide amongst ourselves if we feel that a project needs to have a review after that amount of time. I don't know. I kind of do feel like we should wait and see what the bids are. And if they need more money, they should come back to us and we call a special meeting to get it approved. I mean, I am kind of aligned with Brendan in that I don't want them to think of that as a given because there's money left over. I don't want to get into a situation where a project just feels like, oh, we had money left over here, so let's put it over here. Like that would be my concern. And that is part of the reason why I would, why I want to have this discussion. I agree with Ina 100% that the project is important. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't fund it at all. I just would like to have there be a way to hold an applicant responsible for overages and for bidding, and to not have them think of this as a given that we will just approve the money because there's overages, because I don't think that should be the case. I think that we should encourage responsibility in managing budgets and review the process, review it with them and find out what the overage is and why. I mean, that's my personal feeling. I know I'm not voting on it, but that's my personal feeling on this. Go ahead, Rachel.
I can see both sides of this. I have to admit, I feel swayable on either way. But I guess I would say it probably, this feels like a little bit of an anomaly, but we could go ahead and kind of enact, future practice from this case. I can say that, if the library came back and needed more money for construction because it's been 2 years, I would 100% vote for that. But I can see why it makes sense to do it kind of procedurally, is that the word, or make a process for it.
Yeah.
Just because if it was some other project, it might be, the details might be different.
Right.
I think I agree, and it's 2 years, we all know kind of it's for certain that the price is going to have gone up, and it'll be easy enough to say yes, we should allocate that money in that way. And I will say that, but I think probably it does make a little bit more sense to have them check and then ask and come back. So I guess I'm kind of landing there as I talk.
Does anybody else have? Yeah, go ahead, Brendan.
I'm sorry. I was. The one that the project that they are worried about being over budget is the
Construction.
But when was that application? That was done.
That was the first phase of the project. So that application was approved, I think, in one of our
the
first.
FY19, which was the shelving and stuff.
That was, yes,
But
exactly.
that project's done, and there's that 50 over, right?
Correct.
Where was phase two's funding? 'Cause I don't see that part of the.
That was actually phase 2. The shelving was phase 2. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the construction was phase 1, and the construction was approved first in like our first year. I want to say 2017 or 2018, fiscal year 2018, I think.
Okay.
I have it at construction. I have as FY19.
Okay. And then the shelving was the 2020.
And then shelving, I will. Was 22.
What?
Recently. Well, 20 technically.
I think it was 2021, which we didn't technically have, so it was included in the 2022 funds, I think. 2021? Okay. So they asked for money for the construction and then got held up on the construction and came back and asked for money for the shelving. And we approved the shelving because they said that they were going to start construction soon, but then they just ended up starting construction.
I see a hand raised. Eric.
Wait.
That's a question.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Hi, Eric.
Hey, I'm back.
Yep.
Well, I'm here still, but no, I think, Lisa, you've presented, everybody's presented a valid case. I think, I don't think no one's really in the opinion of trying to, shortchange our, if you will, our resource. To meet, it's the greatest art collection we have in Malden, public art collection. I think
In
they're-
the area.
yes, but you have it seems to me that we already have a process in place so that we won't have to set precedents. We have the ability to call a special meeting in the event that this happens. So,
Definitely.
I can support, I don't know quite how that resolution, how that would be, but I can support, having to come back, have them to come back if there are issues like that, that they can get before us and we can discuss them when the issue arises. We don't know what the issue is, or if there's an issue, we
Exactly.
don't know how much.
Exactly. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Yeah, Brendan.
Again, just so as far as the budget, the going over budget is just a matter of like because of it's been 3 years since they submitted the number, so they expect the cost to go up. It's not that there's any additional work being done that wasn't mentioned in the archive or in the.
Well, that's the other, I mean, that's what, is that what they have, see, that's the other problem I think that I'm having, is that we don't have any form, we don't have any written request or anything. They're just asking us to do this. So that, I think that you may have hit the nail on the head for one of the things that's bothering me, is that fact too. So on my list of to do for this year, I would like to work with Daniel to come up with a form for overages requests, which would probably be really helpful in a situation like this. So, maybe that moves up a little bit on the to-do list for 2023. But no, we don't, we're assuming that the scope is the same and that these overages, because of a conversation that Daniel had. So but again, they're assuming this before they even have the bids in. They've just put their request for proposals out. So I think that those two things combined are kind of what's not sitting well with me. And it's like one of the first situations that we've had in this, kind of a situation that I would like to try to figure out, because I think that we're going to have to answer these questions in the future.
Yeah, no, I think I'm nothing against the project. I think the project is probably fine. I think everything is probably above board. Just I think we do need some sort of document just saying that it is, I don't want them to have to reapply for, money that they were allocated and a project that was already approved, but something that says like the project is as stated, this is why it's over budget, and this is why we'd like to use something, just so that we can, we can hold them to that, and we can say this is why we did it.
I think I'm agreeing with you, and I think exactly what you and Eric had said. Maybe we should think about having them send in a letter that if they do get in the situation where they have overages, once they get the bids in, send us the bids with a letter of request for additional funding, and then we can review, we can call a special meeting and review, or we can review it at the next meeting if that works for the schedule, but we'll accommodate, whatever time frame they need. If it's a 45-day turnaround that they have, we'll try to accommodate as best as possible. I mean, that seems reasonable to me. I don't know, does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add or make a motion or?
I'll just say that I agree with, I definitely agree with the idea of putting together some type of form, but I'm a little bit confused if this is something to, I guess, come later after the fact that, let's say, they put forth a letter. Are you suggesting that which one of the two would be the one that I guess would be the, easiest and most practical?
A letter or a document that the CPC creates?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it seems like because we probably should take some time to create that form, I would think that a letter with the request and the reasons and the bids should work for this purpose. And then we'll work on proving some kind of documentation or some kind of document, official CPC document for a request form
Okay,
for future
Yeah.
purposes. How does that sound?
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Cool. I like how you're kind of disappearing into the background, Khalil. It's very invisible man
Yeah,
like.
the light is a bit dark in here.
Mine too.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
having the
getting
same
sundown.
issue. I lost the sunlight.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
probably gonna change rooms.
So does anybody want to make a motion?
So this would be making a motion to,
Well,
for
I don't know.
applicants to
Yeah,
now
go
put a
ahead.
letter, for applicants to, put forth a letter asking for overages. Potentially that.
And then holding a special meeting.
Oh, yeah, holding a special meeting. So I'll make a motion that current applicants will send forth a letter asking for more funds if they need overages. And if that's the case, then the CPC will be holding a special meeting.
Okay, cool. On Khalil's motion, is there a second? Oh, Eric,
I have
did
a
you have your
quick-
hand up or was that a question, Eric?
No, it was a second. I think
Okay,
I can second Khalil's motion.
I have
Okay.
is this discussion, can I have amend it slightly or ask for an amendment?
sure. Ask for an
Um,
amendment.
I think just saying that we could call a special meeting, not that we will call a special meeting. Does that make sense?
Khalil, how do you feel
Like
about that?
it's not necessary for the special meeting.
Yeah, or if it
Okay.
just, if it's not possible.
If we can
Especially
wait.
if it's time sensitive.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so if they request it, we won't automatically, I just don't want to have that automatically trigger a special meeting.
At the CPC's
request.
discretion
Yeah, at our discretion, yeah.
to call a special meeting. So just to kind of restate Khalil's motion would be, and correct us if this is incorrect, Khalil, but you're proposing that a letter be sent by the applicant if overages are necessary and they need more funding, to send a letter to the CPC, and the CPC will decide at its discretion whether to hold a special meeting for approval of funds. Does that sound right, Khalil?
That's correct.
Okay, and Eric, do you still agree with a second on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, Khalil, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Eric, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Rachel, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Cameron, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Ina, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
And Brendan, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Great, thank you, everybody. That was a great discussion. Okay, next item on the agenda is, so we had some reviews to the budget. And after, I think I kind of went through them in the informational presentation, so I won't spend too much time on this, but we did a little bit more. I know we reviewed something last week. The amounts, the 10% stayed the same, so it was just the allocations to the categories was increased actually after a little bit more due diligence on Daniel's part. And we included the actual state match, which was really sizable this year. That was a nice surprise. 44%. We have never had that much added to the fund. So that was great. So that increased our 10% across the board. So that will be the budget that we send to the mayor for 2023. Unless anybody has an issue or wants to discuss. All right, I don't see any hands raised. Excellent. So we will include that update to the mayor as soon as we can get that out.
Could we
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
possibly get this budget approved by the committee? Just say that the bottom line hasn't changed really from
Yeah.
the budget that was submitted and approved last month, but the way the funds are kind of allocated has shifted a bit. That additional state match of 188,000 that was
Yeah.
above and beyond the anticipated from FY22 is now being applied to FY23. So that changes the
Well,
numbers.
yeah, that was kind of what I just said. But nobody had an issue with it. Do you want us to vote on it to approve it? Because it was increased? We
That
can
would
vote
be
on it.
nice.
Yeah. So okay, does somebody want to make a motion to vote to approve the revised budget, including the state match?
I vote that we approve the revised budget.
I
including the
second.
state match.
And Brendan's, okay, so on Rachel's motion and Brendan's second to approve the revised budget, including the state match. Rachel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Brendan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Khalil, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cameron, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Ina, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, the budget with state match has been approved. Excellent.
And thank you so much. This is really exciting. I think you might be interested to know that we're kind of developing a process here for the CPC going forward. Last year, there was a correction made to the 10% to make sure that the CPC was allocating 10%. And so now we're kind of in this workflow of budgeting using what the estimated budgets are, and then anything that's above and beyond the estimate goes into the next fiscal year budget.
That wasn't what we were doing before?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Can you
I think
explain that one more
it
time?
gives you a clearer picture of how much you actually have to spend that next year. I didn't realize that wasn't how it was being formulated in the past years.
Yeah, this is more in line with the way other CPCs are operating.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it makes more sense. I didn't realize that it wasn't happening that way. So thank you for that clarification.
Could you break that down one more time?
Yeah, it's complicated. The budget kind of like looks forward and backwards at the same time.
So just to clarify, when we create the estimated budgets, we're kind of flying blind because no state agencies, or the coalition, nobody has their estimates yet. The finance department doesn't really have much to go on this early, but we are required by ordinance to get our budgets into city council and the mayor by March 1st right now. And that's something that Daniel and I were discussing. It would be great if we could get a little more time on that so that we align more with when the fiscal year ends or begins in June. However, for some reason, it was designated as March 1st in our ordinance, so we need to follow that, although we have been getting extensions through the mayor's office. So it's now March 16th, so we're trying to get it to them as soon as possible, but we had some things to work out. So because of that reason, we're using best practices and best guesstimates to create our budgets based on guidance from the coalition and the finance department, but we are kind of creating an estimate without having anything to really base it on. So we use last year's numbers and then add 2.5% for the city's amount of the surcharge portion. And then the coalition gives us an idea of how much they think the percentage is, even though they don't have any idea really. But they're saying a conservative guess, because last year was 44%. They're saying a conservative estimate this year would be around 20%. I think they actually
Okay.
said 25, but we're being even more conservative and going to 20.
Okay.
So Daniel, did you want to add more? I just wanted to give them
I
a little
think-
bit more background on
Yeah,
the
I think that was
history.
pretty clear.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so
cool.
our budget is based on estimates, and we try to be conservative, so we're not overspending our budget. And then we take any of the actual that's above that estimate, and we're rolling it over into the next fiscal year.
Mhm.
So that then the next fiscal year includes the actual that we got from the year end fiscal year, basically, is rolled over into the next estimate. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Cool.
You sure I could geek out on this like all
I know,
night?
right?
Well, let's
All
move on.
right. Yeah, let's move on. It is almost 7:30. So the online pre-application, so we're having some issues with gathering the information that we need and the attachments and stuff. So Daniel's going to do a little bit more research on app services. Well, actually, you included some, didn't you? And the I don't know if everybody was able to get, there was a lot of information in the meeting packet this time. But he included a graphic, a chart that showed some options that he's kind of exploring. There are costs involved for some of the better ones, which would be more convenient for whoever's the coordinator is collecting this information. Some of them have the attachments stay with the application, which is huge and allows signatures. So there are some features to different applications that we are considering that would require an annual fee. So I don't know if we want to, if we feel comfortable approving an amount for something like this, or if we want further discussion based on more of Daniel's research, or do we want to just say, you know, after his research, if we, at the coordinator's discretion, we can approve up to a certain amount to be spent on this. I don't know how we feel about it, but it seems like these, go ahead, Brendan.
So if I'm just reading that, I was looking at that earlier. I wasn't exactly sure what it was about, and I'm getting it. So the highest cost or projected cost is $480 for the online like form or app.
Yeah, that would be an annual fee. And he hasn't done the full research yet, so he's still talking with the vendors to figure out what the best use would be, or what the best app would be for our use. So go ahead, Rachel, you look like you were gonna say something.
I'm in favor of making Daniel's life easier, and it's small change. And just in my professional life, I've used some of these, and I know what a difference it can make to have something that actually functions properly. And I think that'll just help us all if we're not messing around for like a couple $100 savings with Daniel's. Because I mean, if you think about Daniel's time, you know what he's paid, that I feel like it's well worth it.
Worth it, right? And then this doesn't mean that we would necessarily activate it this year. We need to figure out the process. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think we're going to have our information input and together and refined and approved in time for the release, which is going to be next month, but we might. But so that was kind of, you know, the thinking was that if we can approve this money, then we can enact it as soon as we have the information ready and approved to go. Does anybody want to make a motion or have anything?
I just,
other questions?
I will probably make a motion after this question.
Yep.
And that would just come out of the administrative end, right?
Correct.
So just be whatever annually.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to allow the coordinator to spend up to, I guess, $500
That's what I was gonna say.
to allow online application or pre-applications and coordination, and I don't know.
Okay, that sounds good. On Brendan's motion, do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, Brendan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rachel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Eric, how do you vote?
Yes.
Khalil, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cameron, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
And Ina, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. So along those lines, we had also posted in the packet the updated CPC plan, along with a draft of a grant agreement for the Mass River Works project, which showed, so we haven't been including a sunset clause on any of our grant agreements. And I think that's an important thing to add, because we should be able to close out projects that have inactivity or that are having trouble getting started after a few years, or have them ask for an extension and let us know why they haven't started yet. So we've added a clause on that grant agreement that says, I don't know, Daniel, do you have it handy? It says to the effect that if the project isn't started within 2 years of the award, they must request an extension, or the CPC can consider closing the job. So I would love for us to consider that addition to the grant agreement, in addition to the changes on the plan. And do we want to run through? Was everybody? I could not see the changes. When I opened the plan, it came up as a clean document. The changes were there, but they weren't highlighted. Did anybody else have trouble finding what changes were made in the plan? Did anybody get a chance to read the plan?
I didn't see highlighted changes.
Okay. Daniel, can you pull that up so that we can just run through them? There weren't very many. But I would love to get blessings on this and approval of the updated plan so that we could release it first thing in April. And I suppose if we
Oh,
can't,
interesting.
then not.
Yeah, I see what you're seeing now, because I'm logged into my computer that has a better webcam. And so I'm looking at the meeting packet as you were seeing it, and I don't
Okay.
see the changes highlighted. So let me see if I can email you all a version that is editable so you can see the changes.
But you know what, if we can't, we can approve it at the next meeting and just release it after our next meeting. I don't want to hold up
Yeah.
I don't want to hold
Sounds
up our
like a
meeting.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do that. We'll table that and put it on the agenda for next meeting. And then any other business is the next item on the agenda. Does anybody have any other business they'd like to discuss? I just wanted to mention two things. If nobody has anything, okay, it doesn't look like anybody has anything. Would love to have you guys reach out to any boards or commissions or city councilors to see if they have any potential projects to add to the addendum on the appendix. It's the potential project list in the plan. So if anybody has any info from their counselor or boards or commissions, please send them to Daniel and he can update that section of the plan. And then it's just setting the date for the next meeting, which I think would be April 20th. And we could try to do another 6 o'clock or 6:30. What works better for you guys? Is everybody good with 6?
6 is better.
Okay, let's stick with 6 on April 20th. Does that work for everyone?
Is that going to be virtual or in person?
You know what? I don't know. Are they allowing us to meet in person? Yeah,
Now,
everybody's
yeah.
allowed. How do we feel about that? Are we wanting to meet in person? Yeah, should we try it? Let's try it. We
Would it
can.
be a combination of in-person and Zoom?
We could do a combination. Yeah, I definitely want to keep streaming. I want to keep our live Zoom meetings, and they have a room at City Hall where we can do this live and have people join us on Zoom.
Maybe we should see, and we'll know closer to the date, because situation, epidemical situation can change every day, we don't know.
True.
And
Well,
Good
let's
point.
plan on doing it in person, and if something changes, we can always move to the Zoom. Because
I believe if we keep it as officially as a hybrid, then that gives us
can
the
do either.
flexibility. But in terms of like public notice, it has to be stated.
for 2, yeah, we can.
with
Well,
the
we can put it.
location.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda that we post on the website as both. And then we can adjust as much as 2 days beforehand. If we need to change it on the agenda, we can do that up to 48 hours.
Oh, we can?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. So as long as we do let them know that it's only, only a Zoom or whatever, but it needs to be posted 2 days before. So let's do that. We'll plan on doing it in person with a Zoom. And then if folks are uncomfortable or something happens with the pandemic, we'll just change back to the Zoom. All right. So 6 o'clock on the 20th. Excellent. Anybody have anything? Anybody want to make a motion for adjournment? If there's no other business?
I'll motion to adjourn.
And
I'll
who-
second that.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand, say hi. Hi, Eric, I'm assuming. Yeah, there we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. Have a great St. Patrick's Day if you're celebrating.
Have a good night.
Have a
Night,
great night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you all.
See ya.